This is Feature Minded. So in this video, we're going to discuss The Watchers. It's a movie that came out, I believe it's from M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. It was a very original film and interesting. I mean, it caught me by surprise. I wasn't knowing what to expect when I went into it because the trailer didn't really give away too much of the movie. So like I said, if you plan on watching this movie, you haven't seen it yet, you might want to save this video for later because I'm going to have to end up spoiling the movie for you if you haven't seen it yet. So this is your warning. So basically, yeah, with this movie, it starts off with an interesting concept of the forest, where this woman was driving through the forest, and when she got to a certain area, there was a place where she was getting to where her car started kind of having car trouble, and her car just shut off basically. And so she got out the car looking for help, and then as she turned around, her car disappeared. So to me, I take that like she was in a portal area of the forest, because there were some signs put up by someone. It was warning people that this is the point of no return in this forest. So if you go any further into this area, they're saying that you're not going to be returning basically. And that's a very disturbing sign to see. And I think there was like some type of skeleton with wings on it. And so the girl, so she was just lost in the forest until she saw this mysterious woman appear, and the woman started running. So she chased her and said, hey, you know, I need some help. The woman ran to this house that kind of looked like it appeared as well. It was a house in the middle of the forest, and she said, hurry up, you got to get in here before the door is sealed basically. And so the girl was able to get into the room in the middle of nowhere, and then as she got in, she was able to be in this area of the forest where there was shelter and a little setup with a TV and a couch and stuff like that, and a big glass window. So they're telling her, like, basically they've been here for a while and there's some beings outside that watch you. So when I hear about how they're calling these beings the Watchers, that reminded me of the book of Enoch. I believe there's a book called The Watchers. So right away, that should be a clue about what this movie is going to cover. It's about the Watchers. And so I've covered the concept of what these beings are, because what they're calling these beings are fairies. So I just did a video on fairies just a couple months ago. I'll leave the link in the comment section and description box if you want to catch up on it. It's a very interesting video. Also, Netflix made a movie called Troll, and in that movie they depicted trolls as giants, some giant orgs or something. And also in the forest, there's a lot of mysterious beings, they're saying, that live in the forest, like the Sasquatch and fairies, I guess. And so also there's a lot of other interesting things in the forest, because it looks like witches and warlocks are attracted to go to the forest for rituals. And we saw how the Bohemian Grove is out in the forest worshiping this statue of owls. So the forest is a very mysterious place. And so right away with this movie, I found it very interesting how the fairies were depicted as these giant beings like the Nephlim. And so the movie goes on to explain why these fairies were in the forest. So what I find interesting is that, well, with Disney, they want to make a fairy look like a cute, cuddly creature. They want to have like Tinkerbell flying around with their little wings, and they look like kind of insect wings on Tinkerbell, but really it's not much of an intimidating character at all. But with this movie, they're calling fairies different, because I guess they're still called fairies, but they're being depicted as these giant Nephilim-like creatures. And it looks like they're basically the fallen, and their wings look kind of like moth-like, and they have some type of animalistic features as well. The way they move around is just definitely not human. It's humanoid, but not human. And like I said, they're very tall creatures. They look like 10 to maybe 15 feet tall. They're very tall creatures, and so they are basically being depicted as the giants and the Nephilims and stuff like that. So it kind of goes into a backstory of why they're in that area of the forest. Is basically like they got kicked out of heaven, so they got banished out of heaven and they fell down to earth, and they're in this little area underneath the earth. So they created these tunnels where they can hide from the sunlight. Basically, they can't be in the sunlight. And I just covered that in some of my other videos as well, where I theorized that sunlight is something that these beings can't be around like that. So These beings are the fallen and they can't be exposed to sunlight. And so with this movie, we see how the beings were basically underground during the day, and they'd come out at night and they'd watch these captives that they had in this little area of the forest. So there was no way out as far as these captives could find. They knew they could go out in the daytime, but they couldn't go far. And so at night they had to be back into that shelter, and the watchers would just watch them and study them. And these watchers, it turns out, were able to shapeshift. So they watch them and study them, and then they can shapeshift into them as they learn more about them and how to become them. So they just were basically studying humans and keeping them as pets almost. And so in this movie, you saw how they also depicted something where they were saying one of the watchers, well, a few of them, I think, were able to actually procreate with humans. So this is definitely looking like this movie is talking about the Nephlim, the fallen ones. And so they were able to create a child that was half fairy and half human. And so this being was able to actually walk in the sunlight because she was half human. So with that being, you know, she was still able to shapeshift, which made her very dangerous, because as these people were stuck in the forest, they actually stumbled across some information on how to get out of there. Finally, they realized that there is a path out of there. Someone was there before studying them, so they found some information on how to get out of there. And so as they fled the area, there was one with them that it turns out she was half fairy and half human. So they actually were helping her escape as well. And then she got into the real world. And so it was very dangerous because she could shapeshift and she was able to trick people. And so I wonder if there's anything to this. Like, I've heard about the shapeshifters before, and that's a very interesting concept because this information has came out for a long time in the conspiracy world where they're talking about shapeshifters and stuff like that. So with this story and how they're depicting these fairies was just unbelievable. Like, you never saw a fairy being depicted so evil and disturbing. You know, it's very creepy with these beings, and plus with them being able to shapeshift and having human babies that are half human. So now we can think about how there's all these national parks and forests, and it's very disturbing now to think about what could really be going on in these forests. Why are all these occultists attracted to the forest to perform their rituals and stuff like that? So, and then with these shapeshifters, I mean, we're seeing things where there's these news anchors where you might see their eyes shift back and forth between human and non-human, or they might have some type of weird glitches where you can see them form into something pretty quick, where they form into this weird looking creature and then they go back to normal. So also we saw depictions of them in the They Live movie where people were being fooled by these beings and they were all around us, basically living amongst us. So the concept of these fairies being able to do that was very disturbing. And then you saw in the movie, that's kind of how they were able to watch the people they wanted to observe, even in the real world. Because, you know, you might see just some strange person around. They might be a homeless person, or they might be, who knows who they are. They might just be somebody that can shapeshift, and it might be the same person. Like, think about that in real life. Like, if you saw, you know, somebody just randomly just always kind of pop up and walking around, and you don't know what these things are, if you would consider if this could be a possibility in real life. I've seen strange people before. Like, you know, you never really know if these people are real or not. And even with, it could be angel-like people too. Like, who knows what side they're on. They could be good or bad, but this movie showing they could be bad. And, you know, you never know. They could be like an angel as well. I think there was a part in the Bible where they said there was some angels that came down and visited a city and ate and drank and stuff with the people and was warning them about something on the way. There was a passage in the Bible, I forget what scripture that was, but yeah, kind of covered that, where it shows kind of like how these spiritual beings could possibly have the ability to shapeshift into people and observe us that way. So in this movie, they're depicting the fairies, and they were down here. So even though they're giants, they were able to shapeshift and appear as normal sized people. So who knows if these could be celebrities or just people watching, people of interest for some reason. So yeah, it was a very disturbing concept to see this depicted in the movie. I definitely enjoyed watching the film. I would give it, I would say a solid A. The movie was pretty good. I mean, it covered so much with the fallen ones and the way they showed these beings, the way they were depicted as giants with these moth-like wings, and everything about this movie was pretty good. I mean, it was pretty suspenseful. Yeah, I definitely recommend you check it out. But like I said, check out my video I just did on fairies a few months back. You might find that very interesting if you enjoyed this video. I go into some deeper research about all of these mythical creatures and these fairy tales and how they could be possibly based on real life things like the fallen ones and stuff like that. And so check that out if you get a chance. Link will be in the comment section and description box. I also leave links to my other channels, my social media, my Feed Your Mind store, my free email newsletters, and much more. If you would like to support this channel, please donate as little as $1 to help keep this channel online. So thanks for tuning in. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. This has been Feed Your Mind signing off.